Henri Cartier-Bresson is widely celebrated as the absolute father of modern candid photography. His name is synonymous with genius. His prints fetch astronomical figures, and his philosophy, the decisive moment, is familiar to pretty much everyone who has a passing interest in photography. And it's easy to think that Henri Cartier-Bresson was born fully formed, but that's not the case. As he said later in life during an interview, that whatever we have done, Kertész did first. And he means André Kertész, a Hungarian photographer who moved to Paris in the 1920s and then subsequently to America. And if you've not heard of André Kertész, you might be asking, like, what is it that he was bringing to the table that changed the course of modern photography and helped Cartier-Bresson invent this decisive moment? When Kertész arrived in Paris, he brought with him two things that would completely alter the history of modern photography. Firstly, he's carrying a unique sensibility, an idea about how he wants to see the world. And then also he has a newly invented camera that allows him to do this. Leica. Leica happens. And all of a sudden, photographers like Kertész have a tool at their disposal that allows themselves to express so quickly what it is they want to photograph. It fits in a coat pocket. Now, when Henri Cartier-Bresson was spending time with Kertész, looking at his work, talking about photography, he was learning what Kertész was developing, a brand new language of using the small camera, a language of photography. And if you'd like to learn some of the core principles of this visual language, to put it into your own work, then I've put together a free visual primer that you can get in the link below. Now, Kertész is equipped with this lightweight camera, and he's doing something that nobody else is really doing at the time with his camera. He's merging the camera with the body. He's turning photography from being a very static, very fixed kind of endeavor to a wandering, drifting concept. He's like a ghost on the pavement. In doing so, in bringing this into photography, he starts to change what people like Henri Cartier-Bresson are going out looking for when they are taking photographs. Because Kertész isn't drawn to major historical milestones. Even when he was a soldier in World War I, he's not photographing the battles or the generals. He's photographing his mates. There's a picture of four people on the toilet. It's that kind of photography. He said that later he would want to send the widow of one of those men a picture of I'm terribly sorry. The last picture that I have of him is one where he's indisposed, but she understood, and I love that. This is kind of the little snippets, the nuggets you get from books like this. This is Kertész on Kertész. I think it's so important we read about what they're thinking, the little stories that they come through. It changes the way that we look at their photographs. Anyway, Kertész, he is drawn to the margins of the frames. Look at his compositions. Think about them in terms of where we are today. This is why when people talk about Kertész, they often refer to him as the photographer's photographer. It must be very difficult, or must have been very difficult for him to put forward this language of photography, to explore this way of working, and to see what happened subsequently. Now, because Kertész has this Leica, because he is now able to wander the streets looking, not mysterious, looking anonymous, all of a sudden, he can just be an observer. You set up a big camera, you walk around with a big camera, people pay attention to you, they change. And the act of having a big camera completely destroys that quiet choreography of the everyday. I'm sure that you have noticed that if you photograph on the street, as soon as you have a camera, people change. But here, Kertész is able to just sit there on a public bench, just watch the way the world passes by, and how he can then begin to follow that idea that he has, that he talks about, was simplify, simplify, and simplify, to make the photographs feel like they are just a moment captured. And it's how he captured these moments that is the seed of what would become the decisive moment. It's easy to think, Cartier-Bresson just boom, makes up this idea by himself. And to be honest, that's what I thought for a long time. But of course, it makes sense. Cartier-Bresson, the great influencer, is being influenced by Kertész. And Kertész realized that when you have a tiny camera, you don't just sort of snapshot reality, you predict it. Because you can walk a street, you can find a form, a shape, something compelling in the shadows, the framing of the streets. And then you can wait and you can take the photograph. There is an image here. It's a 1928 masterpiece called Maudon. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And in this single frame, you can see the exact DNA of what Cartier-Bresson would later repackage, refine, and then market to the world as that decisive moment. This photograph, this is what Kertész is doing. This is what he is bringing to photography. The ideas of being able to think, you can't just set this shot up with a large format camera and I'm just going to magically wait for something to happen. You walk around there and you react. But look how fragile this moment is. Take away the man in the foreground, or take away the steam train going over the viaduct, and the photograph changes completely. There's something also hiding in this DNA. Look at the way that the scene feels. How is it layered? Does it remind you of another type of art form? In painting, does it feel surreal? Are the layers and the levels and the perspectives feel all kind of kooky and weird? Because if they do, then good for you, because that's where we're getting it from. Kertész, Henri Cartier-Bresson, they're all around people who are exploring those aspects, surrealist painting. See how it comes in. When you start looking at their work in this context, you start to say, now this starts to make sense. Everything in this photograph is hinging not only just on a tiny alignment of the time and the space and everything just boom, working, but it also comes together because of this weird composition that photograph is, or the photography is allowing Kertész to explore. And it's that raw material that Henri Cartier-Bresson is taking and he's running with it. He's got that look at Kertész's intuitive, poetic method of waiting for those moments to align, and then he distills it down. He turns it into not a strict discipline doctrine per se, but a method of working that has a little bit more structure to it. So whereas Kertész is a loose, whimsical, I'm just going to photograph whatever I feel like because it connects with me and stuff like that. Cartier-Bresson he's a little bit more full on. But this is unfortunately where this story, I feel, takes quite a bit of a tragic turn. Now it's 1936 and Kertész has moved from Paris to America. But what's going on? As soon as he gets to America, instead of being around fellow Hungarians in Paris and artists, and he's around now corporations and businesses, and they are looking at his work and they want drama, they want hard news. I mean, editors went so far as to say that his photographs have too much story to them. They have too much words, and I mean that's ridiculous. Of course, it's ridiculous to us now, because the foundations that Kertész has laid make his photographs seem to modernize. I wouldn't say unremarkable, but we don't look at them and go, okay, but that doesn't seem totally unusual. I kind of get where he's coming from. but think about it in context of where he was at the time. So Kertész, he goes off to America. The Americans are like, hey, your work is like, it's not really what we want. You're too feeling, right? And then, of course, the war. So he's stuck in America. Not only is he stuck in America, but because he's Hungarian, he's classified as an enemy. So he's not even allowed technically to go outside and photograph. So he spends subsequently decades working in somewhat relative obscurity. Just, it feels like he's getting like sidelined. And then imagine how it must feel to watch Cartier-Bresson take the ideas that Kertész has been working on his entire life in photography and founding things like Magnum, being fated by all and sundry, of coming up with the word, the phrase, the catchphrase to attach to this thing that Kertész has been doing, that decisive moment. He has to watch all of this from a little quiet apartment in New York as the world learns to see in the language that he has taught them. But his name is getting lost in the cracks. He did find, obviously, before the end of his life, some more recognition. In the 1960s, his light, his candle, his fame, whatever you want to call it, it did increase. But it's not giving the concept of the decisive moment to André Kertész, not to André Kertész, giving the decisive moment to Henri Cartier-Bresson that we should thank André Kertész for. We should thank him for taking his Leica and laying a foundation that means that every time that we pull out a smartphone or a little bridge camera or something that fits in our pocket and we take a picture of a fleeting shadow or a scene out of a window looking down, we are speaking his language. He has allowed us to do this. He's laid that foundation. I feel that when you look at André Kertész's work as a whole, and somebody holds up a picture and go, this is why André Kertész is so special. It's hard to tell from that single photograph. It's easy to dismiss somebody and say, well, that looks like it's Henri Cartier-Bresson's work, or it's this, or it's that. Think about where these photographers get their ideas from. Henri Cartier-Bresson didn't come along and try to imitate and, steal ideas from Kertész. He was inspired by Kertész. Joel Meyvert is inspired by Kertész. If you find a photographer whose work you just love, find out where they learnt their photography. Who do they turn to for inspiration? Who did they turn to when they were younger? I think that is a fascinating way of actually developing our own skills as photographers, of looking at this work, so where Cartier-Bresson saw something in this, Bresson saw something in this, Joel Meyvert saw something in this. What is it there that I can find? There's a lovely quote at the end of this book. It says, everything that surrounds you can give you something. Photography cannot make nature more beautiful. Nature is the most beautiful thing in the world. You can show the beauty, illustrate it, but it is never the real beauty. Very far from it. We don't know how beautiful nature really is. We can only guess. And I am always saying that the best photographs are the ones that I never took. I hope you enjoyed this look at André Kertész today. I would really encourage you to go out and seek out his work. Thank you ever so much, and I'll see you again next week. Cheerio.